Hello, I am David Greenhall, Vice President of the US-UAE Business Council. I am pleased to introduce a new episode of our digital series, the Council Talks COP28 Specials. In this series, we speak to representatives of American and Emirati companies that are championing sustainability and playing a vital role in supporting COP28 and the UAE. In this new episode, we interview Zoe Knight, who is Group Head of the Center of Sustainable Finance and Head of Climate Change for the MENAT region at HSBC. Zoe explains HSBC's efforts to achieve sustainability through both capital allocations and reducing its own emissions. Zoe also elaborates on ways HSBC is a leader when it comes to ESG in the MENA region. Now, over to Zoe.
Banks have a responsibility to finance the transition and mobilize capital into the sectors that need it the most to reduce emissions. And there's really two ways in which we can do that. There's one, which is essentially deploy more capital. But secondly, we also have a role at managing our own emissions. And the biggest set of emissions that we're responsible for are the emissions associated with the activities that we finance, so our financed emissions. And HSBC has got targets on our financed emissions to really work with our customers and understand their own climate transition plans and their own climate strategies and thinking, to be able to help them do what they want to do to solve the climate crisis, but also help us manage our own carbon footprint in that area. One of the other ways that banks can be most impactful is by being transparent on the financial flows that are being deployed to help with emissions reduction. So the financial sector as a whole has worked on driving a labelled product market. So we've issued, across the sector as a whole, green bonds, sustainability-linked loans, sustainability-linked bonds. And in fact, the market has reached $1 trillion in the first 9 months of the year. And that's comparable to levels in 2022. And the reason that this is so important is because people want to see that finance is flowing in the direction of change, right? They want to know that emissions are being accounted for and emissions pathways are being supported by the banks and by other institutional investors in terms of the capital that they're providing. HSBC are working extensively on the labelled product market. In fact, in the Middle East in particular, the market makes up around 4% of the total sustainability linked and green funds flow. And HSBC is leading in the MENA region across the environmental, social and governance product framework. One of the other things that we've been doing is partnering with other organizations to help release capital. For example, we've invested 100 million into the Breakthrough Energy Catalyst initiative. And the idea here is that we support the technologies that aren't really commercially viable quite yet. So we're looking at direct air capture, green hydrogen and sustainable aviation fuels. And to get these going at scale, we really need to work together on driving those flows. In fact, right now, we know that around 34% of the technologies needed for net zero globally remain at a pre-deployment stage. And so with our international networks as a global bank, we can really help the enabling environments for the rollout of cleaner and more agile technologies around the world. And so, we realize that this goes hand in hand with pioneering both climate solutions and innovation in sustainable finance. And what we've seen over the years and the problem we're trying to solve is de-risking capital. It's introducing both a structure that works for public and private sector. So in 2021, we set up a partnership with an investment company called Pentagreen to enable projects that have greater access to critical capital through a combination of both technical assistance, because of course we need to do a lot of capacity building in this space, and also bring in alternative flows. So what we're trying to do here is channel investment towards sustainable infrastructure projects that right now are marginally bankable, but we bring those to life and they would otherwise go unfunded. The other thing that we're really trying to work on is nature and bringing together the natural capital solutions side of the equation that is net zero. So one of the roles of banks is really to signal a net zero intention. And once we've done that, we need to operationalize the activities that get us to a net zero framework by 2050. And one of those is by deploying philanthropic funds into the likes of nature-based solutions. At HSBC, we've partnered with the high-level climate champions to support the Mangrove Breakthrough Initiative. And what this is a framework for state and non-state actors to try and share more ambition on driving nature as and in particular mangroves, as a key solution for carbon emissions control. The COP process last year really focused on implementation examples of projects. So COP27 in Egypt was all about implementation. And last year, HSBC partnered with the Egyptian government to work on the Nexus initiative, so the Nexus for water, food, and energy. And what we did was participate in a working group on solutions for the energy pillar. And that meant that we could help provide finance for a 500 megawatt wind farm. And that helped with the country plan for energy transition, which of course is what we're trying to aim for. That wind farm is expected to supply around 800,000 homes across the country, and it'll lower emissions by 1 million tons a year. And I think it's really those types of practical examples that people are looking for from the climate agenda on the COP process. COP28 is all about the global stock take, which essentially is a progress update of where companies are on delivering their own climate plans, known as the nationally determined contributions, which were set out in the Paris Agreement. And we know that we've got an emissions gap to be where we want to be to limit temperature rises, and where we're actually moving towards in terms of business as usual emissions movement. It's the real economy actors that are the enablers of the change. It's the energy companies, it's the finance providers, it's the entrepreneurs that are driving innovation that really make change happen in the real economy. And so the COP gathering every year is a really important place to exchange ideas, make progress, drive systemic changes, and also drive real action on the ground to make the economy shift.